Hello, I'm Joseph Michelli, organizational consultant and psychologist. In this installment, we'll look at how to deal with differing crisis responses. William Shakespeare is credited with first saying that your greatest strength begets your greatest weakness. And when it comes to coping with radical shifts in lifestyle, Shakespeare couldn't have been much more correct. So here are 3 tips to keep your strengths from becoming your weaknesses as you seek to cope with this unusual circumstance. Number 1, take time to list your strengths and vulnerabilities. Number 2, ask a friend or family member to be your accountability partner and to help you spot when too much is too much. And 3, be careful about judging others and limit how much polarizing information you're consuming. Let's look at these tips one by one. First, take time to list your strengths and vulnerabilities. Most of the information you'll hear about coping skills, including a lot of what I've shared to date, is offered as general best practices. For example, deep breathing is a helpful tool no matter who you are, and reaching out to others is generally a good way to prevent feelings of isolation and depression. However, every person will cope with these dramatic life changes differently, and your personality and existing coping strategies will shape your response. Insights about your personality can be an important tool as you monitor the effectiveness of your coping. If you haven't taken a formal assessment of your personality, I found a free version of the Myers-Briggs Personality Inventory online, and it doesn't require any personal information like an email address. It can be located at onlinepersonalitytests.org/MBTI. Tests like the Myers-Briggs, DISC, or 16PF are often helpful to remind us of our personality tendencies so that we can use our strengths functionally and watch for the possibility that we're turning them into weaknesses. For example, my category code on the Myers-Briggs is ENFJ, often referred to as the giver. That means I'm outgoing, a fairly effective organizer, and I like to support and care for others. In times of crisis, those characteristics help me cope. To a point. Because as stress mounts, I'm vulnerable to over-rely on each of those characteristics. For example, I can spend too much time reaching out to others and not take enough time in solitude. I can try too hard to organize things over which I have no control, and I can fail to set a limit on how much I support others. Now, your strengths could be very different. For example, you might be extremely analytical and introverted, both of which are noble qualities in this time. But too much of either of those characteristics could also be your Achilles heel. So step 1 is to take an honest inventory of your strengths, which might mean dusting off prior formal testing, taking a free online test, or just sitting down and listing your strengths. You'll also want to think about what it looks like when your strengths become or may have already become a weakness. Think about using TV psychologist Dr. Phil's line. How's that strength of yours working for you these days? Number 2, ask a friend or family member to be your accountability partner and to help you spot when too much is too much. Once you've identified what it looks like when your strengths turn into weaknesses, ask a friend or family member to help you watch for the crossover line. For example, a crossover line for a person with a strong capacity to escape stress might be binge TV watching for more than 2 hours a day. Their accountability partner could be on the lookout for excessive escapism and encourage that person to get up and take a walk when more than 2 hours of binge watching has occurred. Number 3, be careful about judging others and limit how much polarizing information you consume. American writer Audre Lorde once noted, "It's not our differences that divide us. It's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences." In times of stress, we love our strengths, and we're most likely to harshly judge other people with differing personalities. For example, I get very judgmental about people who, unlike me, seem to not care about the feelings of others, particularly when those people lash out on social media. Here's an example of someone who writes, "If you are an adult driving a car worth over $30,000 and don't have 3 months living expenses cash minimum, you're an idiot." I imagine people like that are likely to judge me for being overly concerned about how his words might affect others, and we're both probably right. What's most important is that we challenge our judgments. particularly with the realization that different doesn't necessarily mean wrong, and that differences will be likely perceived as more annoying in times of stress. For me, that means minimizing social media and partisan news sources. Okay, that's it for this installment. I hope you'll take some time to list your strengths and vulnerabilities. Ask a friend or family member to be your accountability partner and to help you spot when too much is too much. And be careful about judging others while limiting how much polarizing information you consume. Be safe and be strong.